Welcome back. So as we were saying at the beginning, Donald Trump has 2 indictments under his belt. He's possibly facing a third one anytime soon, and there could even be a fourth one coming from court cases in Georgia. And yet, and it's a big and yet, he leads the Republican race by 37%. He has more than half of Republican primary voters within his grasp. And the big question is why? What is it about somebody who could be a felon being so successful as a second-time candidate for president? We're going to talk now to Joe Walsh, who's the former Illinois congressman and former 2020 primary challenger to Trump. He stood against him. And we're joined by Bob McEwen as well, former Ohio congressman during the Reagan years, but a firm supporter of Trump. So, Bob, I think the first question is to you. Why do you not mind?
Well, when you look at the charges, Emily, you can see how just embarrassing it is to the Justice Department to go down this road. Let me just take when Hunter Biden was obviously caught in the court case recently, where they tried to get amnesty for him in violation of everything that's been done before, and the court asked the Justice Department, has this ever been done in pardon me, in American history? And they said no, it never done. And when that blew up, then the very next day, the Justice Department filed a complaint against the president. And let me tell you what it was. It was that he conspired to not turn over videotapes of his security camera. Now, that was the charge. Now, the truth of the matter is that the tapes were all turned over. They have them all in their possession. They never were denied. But in the hundreds of thousands of hours as they're going through everything, they found a discussion between 2 staff members said, I think the boss wants these removed. And he said, I don't know how to do that. You'll have to talk to so-and-so about that.
Do you know,
now, it was never done. It was never done. It never happened. No one ever said it. And yet that was the charge that then wiped the Hunter Biden discussion off of the headlines. And he was charged with another felony. Can you imagine such a thing?
So I can see how you would use an excuse of a politicized judiciary once, but I can't see how you'd use it 3 or possibly 4 times. I mean, at what point do you go, this cannot be a coincidence? You've got a DA in New York, you've got a special counsel, you've got another question in Florida over the missing documents, and you might have another one in Georgia. At what point do you go, it could just be him? It actually could just be him. Maybe he's a wrong-un.
Well, it is him. He's the target. All you have to do is not look at the victim. You look at the charges. And when you find that the charge in New York will fall apart the second it gets to court. It was 20 years ago, a charge. You can see that this is a political effort that 2 years ago when they said democracy is on the ballot, we didn't know what they were talking about when they said democracy is on the ballot. We now know that they intended to prevent the American people from voting for a candidate that they fear would take America back to strength.
We saw what they meant by democracy was on the ballot when we had riots and people killed on the 6th of January. I'm going to turn to Joe Walsh, who, I'm going to be honest, Joe, you've just had your head in your hands for the last 2 minutes. So you are meant to be, you are nominally on the same side as Bob in terms of what you want policy-wise for America, which party you support, and yet it sounds like you are a million miles away.
A million miles away. Bob and I are probably partners and brothers on most policies. Look, here's the deal. I was a Republican my whole life. I'm no longer a Republican because my former party became a cult. It is a cult. It has nothing to do with issues. And the leader of that cult is Donald Trump, and he's a criminal. He's going to be indicted 4 times. And Bob and everybody else can scream Hunter Biden as much as they want. But Donald Trump didn't have the balls and didn't have the decency to accept the will of the people in 2020. Think about that, Emily. He lost an election and he didn't have the decency to accept that loss. That's why we're where we are. And then he did everything he could to overturn the election. He'll be indicted for that. And he'll be indicted down in Georgia because he pressured Georgia election officials to find him illegal votes. This isn't complicated.
Okay, so why are you abandoning the party then? I mean, why would you allow the Republican Party to become, a so-called cult, as opposed to taking it on and fighting it with candidates that you think could actually talk sense for you?
Well, so I've done my best to do that, Emily. I voted for Trump in 2016. I stuck in the party as long as I could. I ran for president as a Republican against Donald Trump in 2020 to try to help wake up Republican voters. But Emily, I realized that, look, this is where the party is. They love Donald Trump. They don't care that he lies. Bob doesn't care that he breaks the law. Think about what Bob just said. Somebody robs a bank, and Bob is mad at the cops for arresting the guy who robbed a bank. But fair's fair. That's where the party is right now, Emily. And if you publicly oppose Donald Trump, there's no room in this party for you anymore.
Bob, it does feel pretty unedifying that people in your party are rushing to the defense of a man, whatever he does. His own prediction was that he could shoot somebody in Fifth Avenue and nobody would mind. You're literally proving him right.
Yep.
Well, we went through this a couple of years ago with COVID and all the rest. And when anybody wanted to bring up actual facts, they were accused of conspiracy or something. The idea as to what's on the ballot is the fact that in the Middle East, we've been completely abandoned the standards of Israel and the 56 non-Iranian countries that look to us for leadership are now moving towards China. We see what happened in Afghanistan, which then encouraged the Russians to go into
And there's nobody
Ukraine.
else who could do that for you except for Trump, except for somebody who's been indicted 3 times.
We see about with the BRIC, what is happening to the world currency. The people do not want to talk about those issues. What they want to talk about is to target a man, and it's a political tactic. When Gavin Newsom was up for recall, he had been mayor of San Francisco, lieutenant governor for 8 years, governor. He couldn't find a single thing that he could be proud of. He spent $130 million destroying Larry Elder and make him the alternative and make him the evil. Now, you'll notice these people never talk about what they want to do about gas prices, about homeless on the street, about open borders. All they can do is to accuse Donald Trump of these various charges.
To be fair, they did. Okay, they brought in
Emily,
the Inflation Reduction Act.
Emily, you know what's fun? Ask Bob if Donald Trump has done anything wrong. It's always fun to ask them.
You ask him.
Hey, Bob, has Donald Trump done anything wrong? Has he brought any of this on himself?
And the purpose of this question is what?
I'd like an answer. Has Donald Trump done anything wrong? Has he brought anything on himself?
Is there anything that he could do that would not cause you to support the Biden globalist agenda that has weakened America across the globe financially, economically, and militarily? That's your target.
So Bob, let me try on this one, and then I'll put it to Joe as well. Do you think that Trump made any mistakes during his tenure as president?
Emily, let's focus on
he
on
can't
the issues.
say it, Emily. He can't say it. He just can't do it.
Correct.
Bob can't bring himself to it.
Okay, get a hold of yourself here, son.
Donald
you could
Trump
do the same thing.
Okay, we're not going to hear it if you overtalk. Let me just ask Joe then.
No, let me just say that. Let me answer the question. You could do the same thing about my children. You could do the same thing about my wife. Have they ever done anything wrong? What is the point? Is she a wonderful wife? Are they great children? He wants to focus on some error because he cannot justify what has happened to America under the leadership of their opposition.
Bob, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? Yes or no?
The election is decided by the electoral college, and they voted. And anybody with any brains can see what happened. So get off your high horse and focus back on the issues.
So was the election stolen, Bob?
I'm not here to play games. I'm here to talk about America's future.
Okay.
And the fact is that in every area, economically, militarily, that on January 21st, the very first day that Joe Biden was president of the United States, the Chinese government violated the airspace of Taiwan.
Okay.
They would not have done that under Donald Trump.
I'm just going to pick up with Joe.
That's what you're interested in.
Okay.
You're not interested in a strong America.
I'm going to pick up with Joe now because I'm wondering what you do, where you go politically now. You're a former Republican who has stood to be Republican president, or tried to at least, against Trump. Are you a Biden supporter now? Are you a Democrat? I mean,
of course he is.
Well, let him answer.
Well, Bob, I'd be happy to answer that. But before I answer that, Emily, in Bob's defense, this is really instructive because, and I hear this a lot from Republicans, we love all of Trump's policies, so it doesn't matter to us what Trump does. It doesn't matter if he's a criminal, breaks the law, whatever. And most Republicans believe that. It's very Just pick up on my one for you, though, because I'm curious where you are politically now. Are you? Emily, I am not a Democrat. I am homeless politically, but I'm doing everything I can to help elect Democrats because I believe my former party, Trump and Trumpism, is an existential threat to our democracy.
And you think that Joe Biden is a good president?
To the side.
You think Joe Biden is a good president?
I've disagreed with most of what he's done, but I think generally on foreign policy, he's done quite well.
And you will vote for him?
I will do everything I can to help elect Joe Biden.
Really interesting.
My policy differences aside.
Okay. Thank you both very much indeed. Great sports, Joe Walsh and Bob McKeon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Emily.
Good to be with you, Bob.
This has been a Global Player original podcast and a Persephonica production.